Dare, I'm just pissed that they created some frozen Hypogean instead of using Khazard, but historically this would make a lot of sense, which I'll get into today, but it would actually make sense that it would not be Khazard, because he is a character that was a wilder and transformed into a Hypogean and became like an icy, you know, hero. But this divine war took place long before Khazard ever even existed, so it actually makes sense if they wanted to have someone freeze everybody, that they wouldn't use him. But I still am pissed because I feel like maybe it will you know, I feel like it's, for some reason it feels to me like it lessens the chances of bringing him, but it doesn't have to. They could absolutely have two Hypogeans that have frost abilities. I mean, there's plenty of wilders that use plants, so, you know. And also, this here's a lore stream, buddy. So, skills kit. What's a skills kit? I'm only here to tell tales, my friend. My friend, I am the Lorekeeper here. I don't know what you were told, but it is my job to keep track of the histories of Esperia, and to inform you newcomers of what happened in the days of yore. It is not my charge to be keeping track of the magic spells that these Hypogean cunts use when they kill our own. That is for warriors like you, Daragon. I care not for her spell list. I care only that she sees death. But yeah, I mean, we could chat. Oh man, Dare. You sound like my mother.
Greetings, one and all. Welcome to Cedar Town, the most joyful haven in Esperia. Please enjoy the Snowspire Festival. It's really fun here. As long as we follow the rules.
Remember, don't go out at night. And also, fire is red.
I pledge my eternal loyalty to the great...
Your Highness. Your Highness. It's your turn.
Greetings! Greetings, one and all! Welcome to Cedar Town!
We begin at the beginning. And in the beginning, there were two beings. Lutos and Honas. Honas was the creator, the maker of life. And Honas created Esperia, as well as myriad other worlds. Lutos was the embodiment of chaos and destruction. Not evil, just disorder. After a period of time inconceivable to mortal minds, these two wills eventually found their physical forms. Driven by instinct, Honas made countless life-supporting planets out of the chaos and fog of the cosmos. The conditions for life itself being the very elements which constitute life. Esperia is but one of myriad worlds created, and in this world, two further incarnations of pure will were born to represent life and death in Esperia. These two incarnations gradually became personified as the two primary gods of Esperia, Dura and Annih. Much later, Esperia's first higher beings appeared. These included some lesser deities and the Draconids. The Draconids, of course, have just recently joined us in AFK Arena, with the most recent expansion bringing them into existence and creating the 8th faction in AFK Arena. The 6th, of course, being, the 6th, the 7th, of course, being Dimensionals. These were followed by mortal beings, among which are counted humans and dwarves. Life and death in Esperia were the domains of Dura and Annih, who ensured that all living beings traversed the wheel of life in an orderly rotation. The lesser deities attended to their own divine duties too, helping to keep the world of Esperia revolving. Around the same time, in order to quell natural disasters of Esperia triggered by the disorder of the chaotic elements, Dura created the first 5 elemental guardians at the Bastion of the Elements, the place where Honas had fashioned Esperia. She decreed them agents of nature's will and charged them to harmonize nature with elemental balance. So these guardians included Khazard, my boy, who was the guardian of the seas, and of course was lured by a Hypogean in the darkest depths at the bottom of the ocean, and in his corruption became an ice-wielding Hypogean, but his origin was that of the guardian of the sea of all Esperia. Over an incomprehensible expanse of time, Lutos had caught a glimpse of the fundamental nature of the universe, gradually deepening his insight into its laws and limitations and those of life itself. Thus it was that he discovered the universal principle of entropy increase, a state of moving ever farther from order towards chaos, and decided that he would speed this up, essentially. Although life possesses the ability to resist this entropy, its inevitability dictates that all life is on the irreversible path to extinction. The same holds true for the entire universe, as it does single worlds. Even the most enormous ecosystem is also fated to become a mere void, devoid of any cycle of life and death. Lutos, believing he had seen the very essence of the universe, deemed the disorder he embodied to be the universe's ultimate and everlasting form, while everything created by Honas was utterly meaningless. For hey, he's got a point. If everything is headed to be me anyway, why don't we just make everything me and skip the middle part, right? Honas discovered Lutos' intentions, and, fearing his actions would destroy the cosmic balance and cause endless disasters, chose to stand in opposition. Using the primordial matter of the universe as his material, he created the Astral Key, an artifact able to condense and transmute the holder's power into a dimension separate from the material world. While using the artifact significantly drains the holder's power, Honas nonetheless managed to seal Lutos into this detached dimension, completely separate from the material world. This world, set apart, is known as the Void Realm. Despite being sealed into another dimension, Lutos still possessed the power to project his will into the material world, to influence and interfere with the living creatures. Intelligent entities in the material world would possess an innate destructive impulse from birth. In fact, we all do have a little bit of Lutos in us. A chaotic urge to destroy order and return to the void state that preceded existence. This instinct is the very epitome of the chaos and disorder projected upon them by Lutos. From mortals to gods, this inherent impulse in all intelligent creatures sees them become Hypogeans one day, who display a strong natural propensity for destruction. And the more chaotic and disorderly the world, the more powerful and numerous they become. This is evident a number of times throughout the history of Esperia, when during the major wars, there's so much negativity going on and hatred between the two sides of the war that Hypogeans are sprouting all over the place. And again, in a sense, we're all headed towards Hypogean status. It's just that most never reach it. Most never get there because they don't give themselves over to it and are not helped along by the power of another Hypogean, which typically is what's required. It's not always required that a Hypogean be present to turn something or someone into a Hypogean, but in almost every case, that seems to be the case in my observation. Not always, but most of the time. But there are cases of I can't think of who right now, but I know that there's at least a couple of instances. I'm pretty sure of Hypogeans, you know, spontaneously of people spontaneously turning hypo. And again, it's any intelligent entity. So you can decide for yourself where plants fall along that, but gods and animals are included just the same. So with that being the basis, because there's obviously a lot more there in the history of the universe, but it's a battle of Lutos trying to get the Astral Key, which is the object which sealed him into the Void Realm. And if you guys were here when I did AFK Arena's current plotline last weekend, maybe? I think it was, maybe the weekend before. We covered the fact that the Void Realm just became its own material entity. Like all of the negativity of the Void Realm somehow spontaneously reached its astral devourer state and was in full-on assault of, I think, reality, or we'd have to go back and check the scale, but all of AFK Arena, every player, be they whale or guppy or tiny plankton, or even smaller, CJ, they, not any less important, just tiny, all beings were fighting against the Astral Devourer for quite some time, I must say. It was at least a week of daily fighting. I want to say something like 9 days or so. It took a while. and once it was defeated, theoretically all the campaign levels got easier. They do this every year or so in AFK Arena as like a way to ease everyone up to the next couple chapters or something. I haven't touched campaign since it went down, but that's what I understand. We'll have to see if pushing is easier now. We were already in chapter 66, so you know. So the Astral Devourer was, as I said, like a material entity formed of, I don't know, the power of the Void Realm, and was put down by Zora, which was this combination of two of the the Zora Nebula, housed the constellations and the celestials within them of Audrey and Moriel, and the two women combined into one being. DBZ style. It was fully DBZ fusion, minus the earrings. But they did do the fingers. Okay. And they became Zora, which is the newest awakened hero in AFK Arena. She came out, like I said, like a week ago. 2 weeks ago, maybe. Yeah, probably 2 weeks, something like that. 3 weeks. And the Nebula just went down. So, or the Devourer, rather. Not the Nebula was triumphant. Okay, so the rest of creation story and all the things there, we could get to it later today, and we cover it extensively all the time in various ways. But I believe from here, I'd like to go into some, specifically some Celestials background, if we may. So essentially, we've got the world created. Honas and Lutos are just beings. They just existed. In the very beginning, there were just two wills. The moment the universe came into being, so too did two wills. Forces, pure forces, that stood in both opposition and balance. After a period of time inconceivable to mortal minds, these two wills found their physical forms. So we've got these two guys. Honas has locked Lutos into the Void Realm after creating Esperia in order to spare Esperia. And on Esperia, we have Dura and Annih, the further incarnations of pure will, born to represent life and death in Esperia. Then, after Dura and Annih, we have the lesser deities, which lesser deities is Celestials, and the Draconids, the dragons. So it was the Celestials and the dragons were all that existed for a long time. And then we got dwarves and humans. And of course, you guys that spend time here know that Wilders and Maulers came from humans. By humans. From humans, by humans. For humans. Oh my gosh, Zoth. Bro. You're so awesome. I love that, man. I would totally do a Gohan Gotenks outfit with you. Do like we could dress up as each of the characters, and then we could do some kind of fusion thing and both change our costume to be twinsies. Opening up my big book here to the Celestials. There are divergent opinions and much speculation concerning the origins of the gods. Some say they have existed since Honas created the universe. Others claim they were once mortals, raised to divinity in honor of their incredible skill or mighty deeds. Zaphrael comes to mind. Vithael as well. Ancelot, though he denied their invitation and lived himself a long, great life after the Divine War, in fact. Ancelot, hero of the Divine War, remained mortal by choice, as many gods were slain during the Divine War. Others still posit that they were at first as unaware as vegetation, but were imbued with the spark of conscious godhood through some divine miracle, or perhaps by the touch of Honas himself. Herself. Ooh, how to gender Honas. That's like a 504B kind of classic college. An elective for sure. Godhood and gender. In fact, all these theories contain elements of the truth. There is, indeed, the original pantheon of deities, as created by Honas. Added to their number are those gods deified by mortals, and more than a few who started as unconscious or inanimate objects before some miracle befell them. Orthros comes to mind. Orthros, the clock created by Dura, the celestial, ultimate clock. The gods of Esperia make their home in the polar regions, on the peak of the highest mountain. There, the gods each attend to their own divine responsibilities. They work their miracles and wield their power to influence nature, maintaining the delicate balance of the world. Aside from this, they are charged with yet another, more important task. Dura, before her death, extracted a vow from the gods that they would use their divine power to maintain the seal on the barred gate, deep beneath the mountains. For beyond the barred gate lies another dimension, a void plane, in which are sealed a horde of ancient demons, the Hypogeans. A powerful energy vortex separates this plane from the material world of Esperia, keeping the Hypogeans trapped therein. But as centuries have passed, and the barred gate remains unchanged, the gods grew lax. Becoming complacent, they forgot their promise to Dura, and thought no more of their duty. The Hypogeans, however, never abandoned their lust for life, for destruction. The Hypogeans never forgot that duty. While the gods grew ever more unconcerned, the Hypogeans' efforts to break the seal continued unabated. Finally, after 1,000 long years, success and their terrible freedom are at hand. A surge of energy was unleashed as the Hypogeans broke free and tore the mountain to pieces, wounding the gods and destroying their home in the process. Moreover, having failed to fulfill their vow to Dura, The gods' pure divinity was tarnished. Cast down and cast out, they were no longer gods, instead becoming celestials. Losing their fully divine status forced them to wander the lands of the mortal realm. These celestials, these half-divine former gods, derelict in their duty, now eternal in that dereliction. To regain their lost divinity, these celestials must swallow the ultimate indignity of uniting with the mortals of Esperia to repel the Hypogeans' final invasion. And let's do Hypogeans as well. Do the initial little background descriptor of the hypos here before we get more specific with all of it, of course. Order and chaos are but two sides of the same coin. Where there are gods who maintain balance and harmony, there too shall be entities like the Hypogeans, born to sow discord and disorder. Spawned from the jealousy of Annih, the god of death, the Hypogeans long ago wreaked havoc across the continent, leaving untold damage and destruction in their wake. Before we even do this little, I can already tell that little description of them is not going to be sufficient. Let me jump to the actual creation of the Hypogeans. Yeah. While we all are born with the potential to Hypogean out, it had not ever come to be, I believe, until Annih first wept out hypos out of his tears or something awesome like that. Here. Maybe I'll turn the cam on too here. Oh man, you guys, I've got that new studio light up from our gift giver Kazard over the holiday, who gifted it off my wish list, which is at throne.com/DangerGrey. If anyone wishes to donate to the stream, we are always in need of. There's several things on there which will be wonderfully helpful to the stream. I'm gonna get a snazzy haircut for the launch of season 3, by the way. All right. I will. You see. You watch. But yeah, I've got that second light up, is what I was starting to say. And the new lamp is just fantastic, man. Thank you again to Kazard for donating it. And I believe that, especially with the tripod built into it, I think we'll get a lot of really great use out of it here. Okay, all right, I found the part about the creation here. Also, hey. Hi, everybody. It's weird without music playing, right? But it's, I mean, obviously when I'm reading, I don't want the music in the back, so. Okay, all right, let's keep going. Originally, Esperia, under the solicitude of the gods, was a place of order. Thus, the records of antiquity document scant few Hypogeans, and even then they were lesser demons manifested by mortal thoughts. Graced with poor intellect and barely any grasp of language, something we now refer to as hypofiends. They would typically lie dormant in the dark and dismal nooks and crannies of the world like nocturnal animals, occasionally attacking unlucky lone mortals or isolated settlements at best. Hey, Popco, welcome in. As such, these minor Hypogeans were never considered an urgent threat. Other planets, however, where the balance of order was disrupted and malice and spite prevailed, were infested with Hypogeans. Once these planets had been completely wrecked, they suffered a kind of death and became corrupted into pure dark matter. Lutos would then absorb this into his dimension, assimilating it within him to bolster his power. Thus, this dimension came to be known as the Void Realm. The realm where all things voided must go. Or the Celestial Cemetery. Lutos grew increasingly powerful by absorbing the power of annihilated worlds. But he remained unable to break the shackles binding him to the Void Realm. Yet he understood one thing with terrible, crystal clarity. The Astral Key was crucial to his escape, and it was still held firmly in Honas's grasp. Having expanded a massive amount of divine energy, Honas was on the verge of returning to a state of pure will, and a long, dreamless slumber was beckoning. Fearing he would not be able to protect the key while he slept, and that it may fall into Lutos' hands, Honas decided to hide it on one of the countless planets he had created. He finally settled on Esperia, appointing Dura as the guardian of the Astral Key, that which held the fate of all the universe within. So it was that Honas the Creator finally slipped into a deep sleep, and henceforth only Dura knew the whereabouts of the Astral Key. Then we get the Helm Civilization and Weemus. Then we get the Golden Age era of Man Gods. Flip, flip, flip. Then Dura has Ancelot create Orthros the Clock, Mortal Alchemy and the Genesis of Yah, which is, naturally, the creation of Wilders and Maulers, known as the Yah, Y-A, originally. Mortal Alchemy is a ruse, like the classic ruse of being able to turn, hair into gold, or back in, the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, and even the Renaissance and beyond, people would claim to be able to make gold. So in the same way, Annih told humans that they would be able to create immortality if they got the experiment just right. And so they set about trying to do so restlessly, relentlessly, and ruthlessly, kidnapping the poor and children and forcing them into hundreds and hundreds of experiments, thousands, achieving no success at all because it wasn't possible. Eventually, humanity was split into a dozen city-states. This was truly humanity's nadir, the darkest and most unendurable moment. When the Yaw finally brought war against humanity, the human forces did not band together or act in unity, but instead looked coldly, indifferently, aloof from one another. Some would even try to profit on the conflict. This chain reaction of human forces falling into turbulent civil strife came to be known as the Cinder War. Annihi's goal had been achieved, and the time had come for mortals to reap the bitter fruit that they themselves had sown. Ka-cha-cha-cha. We get to the Zora Nebula. It's all very interesting, but we're trying to keep it to season 3. Also, time period wise, let me give you time periods on this, y'all. So we've got, and none of this is that important. I'm just reading things as I'm flipping past them, but until we get to the important stuff, by the way. You don't have to remember these dates or anything. It's not that important. But for those curious, time-wise, we've got, so the Golden Age and the era of man gods was 2400 BCE, before Common Era. We are currently in roughly the year 1700, by the way. So we've got, way back, Golden Age, era of man gods, when man tries to challenge the Celestials and become stronger than them, and there's a war between men and the Celestials, and man almost wins, except for this lie that Annih tells them. So that's 2400 BCE, or 4,000 years ago-ish. 4,100 years ago. Because we're in like 1700, and this was 2400 BC. Then you get... Yeah, so that went on for a long time, the era of man gods. Man was, like, really all-powerful. Once they learned dragon speak and had the power of magic. So Dura taught magic to humans against everyone's wishes. They said, I guess that's okay. There's a whole reason for it, but we won't get into it. And that's how man became so powerful, as they learned magic. And then they were just wielding it left and right, and there was nothing to keep them in check. So the gods basically devised a plan to have man keep itself in check by fighting, creating infighting, and it worked. Of course it did. It always does. And then they were experimenting on one another and created these weird animal people, which are the Wilders and the Maulers. But were all just known as the Ya initially, until they split up for various reasons, all of which I've covered in the past and will cover again, I'm sure. I'm going to try and make some short, digestible tidbits on each subject over the next couple weeks. Put out one a day, something like that. We'll see. It's been a lot of real life stuff going on too. So, so all that happens, and we get to Zora Nebula, Bellvale disaster, and the death of Quaidam. Quaidam is the creator of the Graveborn. So that will play a factor in this season, maybe. But he is the creator of the Graveborn. And then we get to year 1. I'm trying to remember why it became year 1. I think because the end of the Cinder War, the Lightbearer Temple was established. So humans before the year 1 were just humans and called various things in various countries. Then, of course, religion brought them all together with the establishment of the Lightbearer Temple. And the year that it was established came to be known as Year One because, of course, humans like to, build things around their religions. So, which is one of the things I really love about the writing in Esperia is that they take the realities of this world that we all live in now in the real world, and that's the best fantasy writing, is when you tell truths about the world using fictional characters. Telling truths with lies is what's the best part of fiction. So the Lightbearer Temple is created. Here we go. The year 33. Annih is consumed with envy, and the Hypogeans arise. Despite the conclusion of the centuries-long Cinder War, no respite was forthcoming for the humans, as a new catastrophe was already looming. As people were enlightened to the real nature of the fraudulent mortal alchemy, they began to revile the god of death and his insidious treachery. Already envious of Dura, Annih's bitter jealousy could not be contained when he saw how spurned he was, yet she was embraced. His malice bubbled and boiled over until his toxic negativity manifested itself through his divine power as a torrent of Hypogeans. Those created by this primary deity of Esperia were far more potent than those manifested through the petty evils and ills of mere mortals. Driven by an innate lust for carnage, these higher-order Hypogeans assembled the lower ones, previously scattered across the length and breadth of Esperia. In a single night, all of Esperia was overrun by a vast army of Hypogeans. Humanity, still traumatized and reeling from 4 solid centuries of war with one another, and with the Maulers, faced yet another calamity. Is it any wonder that they fell apart in utter disarray, unable to mount any sort of defense against the rampaging and new, fresh, high-order Hypogeans, never before seen powers of evil and destruction? Some humans chose a policy of appeasement even, seeking to avoid conflict entirely, while others treacherously turned their backs on their fellow humans and became complicit with the enemy. Under the lightning advance of the Hypogeans, key locations quickly fell one after another. However, there were still those who refused to sit by and meekly wait for death. Ancelot, a young warrior, was elected by the faithful of the Lightbearer Temple and entrusted with a sacred mission in the year 37. When you say otherworld... Hey, CJ! When you say otherworld, Popcode, do you mean the Void Realm where he was sent to? Where Lutos was trapped? Were there monsters there? Is that your question? The Void Realm is like an astral plane. So there is nothing in physical form there at all. But probably there's definitely evils and negative entities there, like Lutos himself, but it's, you know, the idea of wait, let me turn cam on. So, you know, the idea of like, oh gosh, Khazard thinks he's more important than I am. Honestly, he is. I don't blame him. Bert, there we go. Okay. You know, the idea of like astral projection, right? Like people will meditate, and then the theory that you can like send your body, or not your body, your spirit without your body can travel. It's a lot like that, I think, that realm is. But that's a good question. What is the void realm like? That would be a really good episode of something. That'd be a really, really good thing to cover. Man, there's so much great material, you guys. I'm gonna have so much fun this week, you guys. We're gonna start this year. This year is gonna be rockin'. I promise you all, we are gonna have so much fun with lore. I'm gonna make content and content and content. And what I need you guys to do is to get other people excited about that content when it starts coming out, because it doesn't get views the way that other stuff does, which is fine. It's never going to compete with the other stuff, but that's okay. I love it, and I think it's important, but you know, we do need to have some people that are into it. So it'll be so it's gonna be such a fun year. It's gonna be great. So we arrive at Ancelot now, hero of the Divine War. And honestly, it seems a little bit like they may have well, maybe. It seems a bit like they're turning Valka into, I think they'll just, so we'll see. We'll have to see, like, right? Like she spoke about it yesterday in the bit we streamed yesterday, but she was a hero of the Divine War, I think, from this township, right? Not necessarily the hero, but she was a hero of this same war, of the Divine War. So same time period we're talking about, like 2,000 years. Can the monsters steal your spirit? Well, sort of. They can convince you to become one. They can convince you to turn your spirit into to go evil, right? You can break bad and go hypo. So sort of, yeah, they will. In fact, it's what they do. A lot of what they do is try to get people to turn bad and to join them, and they come and whisper in people's ears. That's like the hypo thing to do, is like whispering in people's ears and getting them to do evil things. Yeah. Duxie, I think you might need to move on from Mir. Not forever, but I don't think 2025 is a good well, maybe, I don't know. We got time loops now, right? We could freaking time loop it back in and bring him back in if we've got time loops, right? There's all kinds of time loops in Esperia. We can bring Mir back all the time. So, Ancelot. All right, welcome in, guys. Hi, welcome, and thank you for the raid, Hizzy. So, Ancelot was a young warrior elected by the faithful of the Lightbearer Temple and entrusted with a sacred mission. A born leader, charming and charismatic, he succeeded in reuniting humanity and established a new order known as the Lightbearer Empire. So he was elected by the faithful of the Lightbearer Temple and created what we now know today as the Lightbearer Empire. The fractured human race who had been caught in all of this infighting, from 400 years of it, thanks to the god of death, Annih, and his cruel trick, and the creation of the Wilders and the Maulers at the hands of cruel human scientists. The Lightbearer Temple and its elected leader Ancelot rose up to unite humanity once more under one single banner. This fledgling Lightbearer Empire, forged through crisis, staggered but held fast, as it was born from the ashes of a broken world. Following the founding of the Lightbearer Empire, Ancelot resisted the passive and defensive attitude formerly taken in the face of the Hypogean threat. Instead, he seized the initiative to attack and launched a grand offensive. He formed the Guardians of Dawn, an imperial force dedicated to defeating the Hypogeans, and appointed his former comrade, Zafrael, as their commander. Zafrael, commander of the Guardians of Dawn. Some years later, Zafrael's outstanding accomplishments in the Divine War and his saving of one of the gods when they were in serious danger were recognized by the divinities, and he himself was deified. Before taking his place in the Pantheon, Zafrael relinquished command of the Guardians of Dawn to his lieutenant, Kais Rain. And anyone who plays AFK Arena knows the name Rain very well. Not Rain, the bounty hunter, but Rain with a Y. And they are the one of the most prominent families in all of Esperia, in all of the Lightbearer realm. Estrilda Rain. I wanted to say Thane Rain, but he's not a Rain. He's the Thane in Rain teaches mainly sword fighting in the plain. A Thane, again, sword fighting in the plain. Thane was the swordmaster instructor of several of the Rain family. He was the greatest swordsman in the land. And Baden is a Rain. It's Baden Rain. And the two of them are, of course, lovers and husbandos. They're the first clearly defined same-sex couple in AFK Arena lore. But point being, many of the primary Lightbearer characters either are Rains or are closely tied to the Rain family. So the Rain family gets its noble heritage from this lieutenant who took over when Zafrael became a god and handed over command of the Guardians of Dawn to Kais Rain. It's spelled a little odd. It's I don't know if there's a different way to say that, but so I typed it into YouTube because that's the easy chat I have up. Sorry. I like this idea that Slowby had of maybe putting the chats together. That sounds dope. I'll have to look into that. I'll make a note of that too here. It's a mess, sorry. So Okay, yeah, we're building up to the Divine War, basically. The Hypogeans had completely ravaged all of Esperia, even invading the Scorched Expanse, the territory no one wanted, which was given to the Maulers in order to avoid continued problems with the Ya in Lightbearer territory. They were eventually exiled, all of the Ya, out into the boonies, into the Scorched Expanse, the desert, which is the Ashen Wastes in Journey, is what they call the Ashen Wastes. The Hypogeans had completely ravaged all of Esperia, even invading the Ashen Wastes. Facing their brutal assault, the bellicose Maulers ceded not 1 inch, but prepared to resist. Under the command of the Grand Chief and the Bloodclaw, the Maulers quickly rallied a formidable force and launched a regional war against the Hypogeans. Despite hitherto being shielded from the worst horrors of the war by the Dark Forest, some of the wiser Wilders were nonetheless concerned. These astute ones, later known as the Great Sages, CJ, were adamant that if the Hypogeans were permitted to continue wreaking havoc, eventually even their Dark Forest would be crushed by the demonic hordes. So, essentially, the Dark Forest is NATO. The Maulers are Ukraine. And the Hypogeans are Russia in this example. But really, though, it is that type of, or, you know, you could take it back to World War II, whatever. It's a neat example of them using the way that real world humans, the way that real wars are fought and waged is brought into this fiction in a way that is palpable. And, you know, because I just used an example that happened after this was written, right? This was written in 2018, 2019, at least, maybe earlier. And so it's just, I love that about Journey, the way that, about Esperia and AFK Arena's lore, and what I hope Journey will continue with, which is this relatable feel to the fiction. Yeah, dragons exist. Yes, dragons are very powerful magic users, and they're dragons. But they also have some of the most powerful magic in all of Esperia. It's called Dragon Tongue, and it is currently like the main plot line of AFK Arena this whole year. Has been their reemergence after several thousand years of hiding, essentially. And people thought the dragons were, you know, a myth kind of thing. But they're back, baby. And now there's a whole new gotcha system to get them. And boy, are they strong. And boy, are they expensive. And boy, do I not even have one yet as a free player. I got a lot of cards, though. But I have not built a what are they called? Elder? Highborn? I have not built a Highborn yet. I have 2 decked out Lowborns. I'm saving up. Yeah, me too, Popco. Wouldn't that be awesome? I really hope they do it. I agree with you. I would love to see Dragonlands. Yes. Yes. Duxie, that's silly, man. Are you not using hero choice? It's not impossible. Just every 9,000 diamonds, you'll get a copy, bro. It's not impossible. In fact, it's super doable. It's just, okay, all right, make sure you use hero choice, pal. No, Slowby, nope, none, which I think is interesting, and there should be. But no, there are not at the moment. But Shakir was close to that before they changed his story. Shakir's original story is that he ended up caught in a situation where he was fighting a Hypogean and got knocked down, and I think was preparing to be slain, and a group of humans stumbled upon him. I think it was like in a cave or somewhere. It was somewhere kind of isolated that they ended up in the same place as him, and they came to his aid and fought it, and they all fought together, and whether they defeated it or escaped, I don't remember, but essentially they saved his life and he theirs the next day by, after they fought it off, not the next day, but after they fought it off, they took care of him, and like he woke up in a bed with them around, and they were like, hey, that was close, and he, you know, thanks them and can't believe that he was saved by these humans. Then a couple days later, he's a commander, and it's the ongoing war between Maulers and humans, and they are brought before him as captives, and he's told to do a public execution of them, and he refuses. He says, I can't do that. Why are we even fighting this war? I'm over this war. He's in charge of like the whole battalion, and says, let them go. And they're like, you know, if you let them go, your life is forfeit. And he's all, then it's forfeit, you know? And he gets exiled from the Maulers, and really by choice, because he decides he doesn't know what he's fighting for. He's not interested in killing for the sake of killing. He doesn't even know what this war is about, and he's out. And then these humans show up like a day or two later, and they've left their group as well, or they never went back to there. They went and found him instead. And now they live as a band of outlaws, not accepted by Lightbearers or humans, or by Lightbearers or Mauler society. They're just this band of outcasts, outlaws, doing their own thing in the desert. And then they rewrote him into this current character we have who tries to fight rocks. I don't know, Slowby. It's a real shame. It is. And I told them that. I talked to Red about it, and briefly, the language barrier was a bit of a challenge to get into the import of this. Like, it was hard to say. I could say like, hey, why did these change? And they answered me, but we couldn't get into the like, man, this story is so passionately good, and here's why, and unfortunately, it was kind of hard, and also we didn't have a lot of time at that time, and there's so many things I wanted to talk to them about that on that specific story, I tried to make the point as a whole that the game is really lacking with the rewrite, and they said, we know it was rushed, we had to get a story out before launch. And I don't know why they didn't like their original story. We didn't get into why they didn't want to use the story they already had. They never answered that. They just said they know the new one is bad and that it was rushed. But they never told me why why they had ditched the other one. I think it vaguely had to do with maps, honestly, genuinely. And like, I don't know how they could not know the difference in the caliber of those plot lines, but yeah, man, that's why he's my favorite character. I'm very hopeful that they will restore it eventually, that they will restore all these heroes to their story. There's Corrin's original story was really good too. Eddie's story is great. Smokey and Mirky's story was so good. And also then they took them out and they added in the tales, which are AI generated garbage. Even if they're not, we did a test and we created things with AI telling them like, tell me 10 facts about a paladin named Lucius. And honestly, they were like almost word for word the exact same reading as these tales that they've created for people. And they think, I don't know. It's a travesty, and they need to have someone who cares about the storylines of these characters the way that the team does for AFK Arena and has for the last 7 years. They need someone caring about these characters, and instead I feel like they're caring about how it looks and trying to tell, ports of other franchises. Like season 2 was this weird abomination of the Sonya and Nara story, because Sonya and Nara, in their original story, they created the Whispers themselves as children who were kicked around and beaten on the streets of Rustport. They fought for themselves as 2 women and built up the Whispers person by person, orphan by orphan specifically, banding together all of those who were kicked around and vulnerable in the streets, banding together to be an organization so strong and fearsome that they were the ones who made everyone else feel vulnerable because of their strength and power and viciousness, frankly. Nara was a slaver. You don't have to have that in there, but I mean, like, damn, right? But they were empowered women, and they're a couple. They're desperately in love. They have one of the best love stories in Esperia, Sonya and Nara. And they changed all of that to their sisters and Tessio, and it's just an old man who built up a mobster organization, and his upstart daughter is gonna steal it from him. It just made it so much different and less cool, and I just don't know why. Like, why would they do that? So I would love to have a conversation with them about it, and I will reach out to Red once I play through this whole, and Young Chang, the two lead developers, producer, the executive producer and the lead designer of AFK Journey, who I met and got to have wonderful conversations with in San Diego. The 3 of us talked for almost an hour all told. So I will reach out and talk to them about how the story went, and where they might be going and stuff, and all that. Like, I will try to have some back and forth with them about it once I get to experience all of season 3. But yeah, direction wise, I think they could be doing so much stuff that would bring people in. If they were telling these stories that I'm telling you now, people would be hooked, man. They wouldn't have to worry about customer retention. Like, that's the whole point, is like, if they were telling these really good stories with this platform that most of the attention I think they've put into building the platform. They've put it into, I mean, the graphics are insanely gorgeous. Like, we all love how the game looks. The gameplay is great and getting better all the time. They're always innovating, trying to create new ways to play this game. It's one of the best things they've done in AFK Arena for so long. The reason that I played it for so long and love that game so much is because it seems like endless, their ability to take the same game, because it is literally the same game, and create so many different ways to play it with the different game modes. It's just endless innovation. So I think they've focused on all of not the wrong things, but they have missed out on what is the most important thing, which is the stories. And I think it's very clearly coming second to the rest of it so far with Journey, ever since the change they made right before launch, when they ditched the Shakir story and the whole rest of the starter story and put in what we still have today. And while they've made some good strides in telling better stories than season 1 was better than the starter story a bit, and season 2 was a lot better than the season 1 story. We'll see how season 3 is. From the trailer they put out, the most recent trailer, it looks like amazing, but you know, I'm 8 days into it on the Vietnam server, and my impression has been, you know, very underwhelmed. But also not much has happened yet, right? It's just slow to start, really. So I don't, there isn't much story, except there's a party going on in a place we've never been to or heard of before, Duchy of White Ridge. So there's a party going on, and there's this masked woman there, Valka, which I don't think that's a big secret. I don't feel like that's a spoiler. And she's showing up and telling them that, you know, there's some things that they don't know, kind of stuff. And we're supposedly going to get into the Divine War and all this cool Esperian history. So that's what we're trying to cover today, right? But is whatever background information may be relevant there. But I am very fearful that it will be a shallow interpretation. And it's just that if they just told the stories like they are, like I'm telling them to you, people would be so hooked. This game would be bigger than World of Warcraft if they told the stories first and let the rest of it come second. But the story feels like it is the last thing they're focusing on, because you don't need the story to make it look great and bring people in, but you need it to keep them here. And that's been a problem for them, is keeping people here. And I'm telling you, this is why. That's what I think. So, anyway. Catch up with you. I really hope they fix Amir stuff. Duxie. CJ's like on it about Amir. Bring Mir back. I love it, man. I love it. Good for you, CJ. You love what you love, man. You love what you love. Yeah, Bell, why not? It's a mobile game, so it's a lot easier to get people to play it. And, you know, Genshin's big, but Journey's got more... They've got a lot of it down. The right parts of it, a lot of the stuff that you need, they've got. They just don't have that thing that'll... It's like they set up this beautiful, the most beautiful fireworks display ever, and they're trying to light it by blowing on it really hot. Instead of making sure they have, you know, a blowtorch that won't go out, which is the freaking story, so that all the fireworks can go off. Or alternatively, you could switch that around and say they built the most incredible delivery system. Actually, it's more like they built the most incredible delivery system for a fireworks show. Actually, that's what it is. They built the most sophisticated, never break, always there, goes right off when you want it, incredible fireworks delivery system, in order to deliver fireworks that go pew, pop, pew, pop. So people are like, oh, okay. That was, I mean, there were colors. When they have in the back labeled AFK Arena, do not disturb, like in barrels in the back warehouse, they've got these fireworks that are like, you know, freaking Gandalf dragons sweeping over the lake of hobbits and everyone running in terror. They've got those, and instead they're building new ones that are little fizzle pops. And I don't know why. Why aren't they using the giant dragon fireworks in the back? If they did, yes, it could be bigger than WoW. I mean, truly, the stories are that good from Esperia. but they're not using many of them, and the ones they are, they're, you know, taking out the important things like Sonya and Nara building the whispers for themselves. Anyway, I think the game is headed in all the right directions everywhere, except the stories is I haven't seen this, but we did originally in the beta. That's kind of the craziest part, is that the Journey beta initially had this to it. It had that Shakir story. Shakir's not in AFK Arena. So that incredible Shakir story, that's all Journey, man. It was there. It was there. But I don't know where that might be. A writer. Maybe they lost that writer. I don't know. Anyway, great questions, guys. Great conversation. Let me ask me about the Shakir story, and you'll get you'll get a diatribe. Whew. Love my boy. We got him to S+ yesterday on test server. We sure did. So, oh, you know what I just realized? Hold on. We should make this background oh, it's just, I see. It says AFK Arena, but it's in the leafy greens. So I do like the leafy greens, huh? Yeah, the leafy greens are good. I was just gonna cover the AFK Arena because it's Journey, right? But it's whatever. We'll keep it at it. It didn't occur to me that would take out the greens too. I love the greens. All right. Yeah, back to it. Okay, so the Maulers are fighting the Hypos on their own, right? And the Wilders are speaking to one another about how if nobody steps in, you know, the threat will come to the Dark Forest eventually. The Dark Forest was created by Dura for the Wilders to have a safe place, by the way. It was created as a safe haven for the Wilders, so that they might separate themselves from the Maulers when they were all known as the Ya. The Ya was the term for the half-animal, half-human spliced creatures that were created during the period of mortal alchemy, when Annih lied to humans to create their infighting and told them they could become immortal when they actually couldn't. So Dura ended up creating a place for the Wilders, although not initially. They set off on their own with a prophet. There was a prophet named Wilders who said he had dreamt of a place where they could be safe. And so they followed him out into the desert like Moses, truly, for 40 days and 40, no, for actually, I think it was 100 days specifically. It's specified in here. I believe it's 100 days. And eventually he comes to a spot where he says he was told to take them. And, you know, the whole troop is not much water, no food. They're on their last legs. And there's a doe standing there. And that doe is Dura. And she, upon their arrival, instantaneously creates the dark forest as emerging, expansive, beautiful, thick, lush forest full of water and vegetation and flowing rivers and streams, and most importantly, a protective bubble around it that would deeply confuse anyone trying to get in who was not welcome. Specifically, it's cool magic. It's very cool magic. It's a specific magic that confuses anyone who wants to get in there that doesn't have positive intention, basically, kind of thing. So essentially no one can find it or get in there at all. And so they're protected in this bubble. So that creates this type of Ya. Eventually they name themselves the Wilders, who are, you know, probably going to be a bit isolationist, right? They're gonna keep their borders up and not want to let people in, and, you know, not want to necessarily come to the aid of the Maulers, who are the reason they had to leave. It's also specified, you might have figured this out on your own, but the primary difference between the Wilders and the Maulers is the creation, the splicing animal that was used. So carnivores and herbivores, essentially. The carnivores are more hot-headed and the predators. So the predator animals are more hot-headed and want to fight with the humans who exiled them, and they have this hatred in their heart, and they're always picking fights, you know, be it a war or in the street, whatever. And the wilder people are the more herbivorous creatures, like goats and sheep and bunnies. And the goats and sheeps and bunnies and things, and white frost wolves, apparently. Faramore. So cool. Which he's the first one, like the first wolf that we've had as a wilder. I love that they did that. So there are some of each kind that don't fit that mold exactly, but on the whole, it's that the carnivorous creatures created more hot-headed beings, basically. And so the more peaceful beings wanted their own space, so they left. It wasn't about fighting each other. I mean, I'm sure that was part of it, but it was about fighting the humans. In particular, they were all banished from, you know, Lightbearer Town. I don't remember what the name of it was at that time. It's changed. But when they were exiled to the Ashen Wastes altogether, some Ya wanted to turn around and fight the humans and create a war and say, you know, give us our town back and we'll kill you all and get our revenge. And some of them wanted to just be left alone. And you know what? It's good they kicked us out. They didn't want us. We didn't want to be there. Let's just make our own home and not worry about it. And those became the Wilders. So, all right, so we're with the Wilders in the Dark Forest at the start of the Divine War. Why did Dura favor the Wilders? Why? Huh. I think the way that because she is the goddess of life and creation, and, you know, they were good creatures. They were probably devout creatures. They, you know, they just wanted to be peaceful, religious, you know. They probably prayed for relief and were good people. I'm not sure. but it makes sense to me why Dura would favor the Wilders. And Dura is there for the Maulers as well. It's not that she's not. It's Dura's there for everyone, really. I wouldn't say that she favored them over the Maulers. She just gave them their own house as well. Did Ghostland exist? What do you mean Ghostland? And no, there's no elves that are spoken of, Popco. I think the bunny Wilders are kind of the closest thing we get to elves so far. I feel like Laika and Lorsan and them are pretty elf-like to me. I'm not sure what kind of creature Respin is. Respin is very elf-like. Respin is the direct offspring, I think he's a nephew, of Khazard, of my boy here. Looked just like Respin before he was Khazarded. But I don't know what you mean by Ghostland. You know, Slowby, there's a tiny passage about it right here. Let me tell you. So come on. Mortal alchemy, genesis of Yah, establishment of the seers, civil unrest. Here we go. Guided by an oracle of Dura, these Yah embarked on a treacherous journey out of the scorched expanse and ashen waste, trekking all the way to the far east over mountains and rivers. They were reluctant to make an enemy of humanity, eager instead to simply find a place of peace in a world upended by war. This historic migration would come to be known simply as the Exodus by future Wilder kin. After a grueling journey lasting over 100 days, the Yah finally arrived at the place one of their kind, Wydus, had once visited in his dream. There they encountered Dura, disguised as a doe, and discovered the dark forest, brought into being through her divine power. These Yah have made a home in the dark forest from that day forth, to ensure that they had the means to protect themselves should the need arise. Dura also imbued their bloodlines with the very power of nature itself. This gave them an intrinsic affinity towards fundamental elements and towards the wilds, allowing them to easily harness and manipulate natural magics. To show their appreciation for the divine blessing they had received, these Yah began to call themselves the Wilders, for the wilderness in their blood. To help the Wilders overcome the trauma of war and stay removed from any further fighting, Dura wrought a barrier of natural magics around the dark forest. This was a thick mist, a miasma infested with phantasms and illusions that never waned. Any living being from outside of the Wilder bloodline attempting to penetrate the mist would be confounded by the magic and become hopelessly lost within. There's lots more on the subject, but you know, it's all in the stories of each character, or the Union stories, or there's all these in-game stories in AFK Arena that tell the tale of Esperia, and that was really the point that I tried to hammer home to Red and Youngchang a number, like that was my thesis statement, if you will, for much of the night, was that these extra stories, the lore stories, because they were in Journey originally, the stories were in Journey, each character you could click on in the story was there, like the Shakir story. They add to the experience. They don't take anything away. The answer is that they decided to take them out because he told me they had wanted to have you live through the experience with the character now that you can, rather than read about it. But what I tried to make really clear as I could, was that it just adds to it. These stories, we build the world through these stories, and it's not just about, it's the story about Shakir is not just about Shakir. We are also learning things about how humanity is acting at the time and how that Hypogean is acting. In the stories about Eddie, or Odie, whose name was changed to Odie, or his name is Eddie, but it's changed to Odie right before launch, which everybody loved Eddie back then. I think changing his name kind of killed some of that. He used to be like the guy, everyone's favorite hero in the game, like character wise, like everyone was an Eddie, like Eddie was Eddie. I think now we like to think of his name as Edward Odin, and his friends call him Eddie, but you know, is officially on his name card and stuff, it says Odie. So either way, right? But in Eddie's story, there's a bear folk in a cage right next to him, and they are having all kinds of conversations where it's on my YouTube. If you look on the YouTube, you can find Eddie's story. Just search for it. Eddie's lore story. And in hearing that bear folk and seeing what Eddie sees about him and what he shares with himself, we're learning so much about the world of Esperia through that story. They're written to do so. And so without these stories, we lose so much of this. All we get to see is this extremely overly simplified version of Esperia that they put in front of us. We're never going to be able to get the full picture of Esperia from the game as it is, because it's not, it's not Skyrim, right? It could be, it should be. It should be Skyrim and the gacha battle game, right? That'd be, ideally, in a perfect world, it will be, but it's a very simplified version of this world. But in the storytelling is where we really get the full picture. So I think they're an important part of getting people involved in the game and wanting to return to it and being invested in it is having these stories. So I really hope that they bring them back. Yeah. Thank you, Slowby. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, there's several more that I have done and not released and should, and several that I want to do too. So we'll get more of them out. But the Eddie one is out. The Viperian one is really good. That one's out. And the Hodgkin one that I just did is probably my proudest one. That's one I put a bit more work. Most of them I do live, just reading them here on the air, you guys. And didn't just post them up afterwards, but like the Hodgkin one I actually spent a couple evenings recording. So check them out if you haven't seen them. Okay, so Divine War, Wilders. Despite hitherto being shielded from the worst horrors of war by the Dark Forest, some of the wiser Wilders were nonetheless concerned. These astute ones, known later as the Oak Sages, Mirmir, Donnie, and Arden. These astute ones, the Oak Sages, were adamant that if the Hypogeans were permitted to continue wreaking havoc, eventually their dark forest would be crushed by the demonic hordes. The Wilders could lose everything they had so painstakingly strived for. So the wise ones began to exhort their people to proactively expel the Hypogeans. However, their pacifist nature meant that most Wilders were reluctant to involve themselves in the war at all, having long since become accustomed to living their quiet, peaceful lives in the Shire. It does remind one of hobbits a bit, does it not? We're hobbits, Mary. We're Shire folk. We're meant to be at home. With a pipe. Moreover, their ancestors had come to this forest precisely in order to avoid war. So why in Dura's name would they now choose to abandon their hard-won paradise and voluntarily seek out such chaos and destruction? The pleas of the sages fell largely on deaf ears. However, the pleas of the sages fell largely on deaf ears, however, and pacifism remained the will of the Wilders. Thus it remained until the Wilders learned that Dura herself was leading the other mortal races on the front lines of this fight against the Hypogeans. Suddenly, no one could pretend that this was not a life or death struggle for the entire continent. One the Wilders would be unable to avoid forever. And so, the Wilders united as one around their sages, ending a centuries-old tribal society and becoming an allied force. With an army made up from members of every tribe, they departed their dark forest home and marched for the front lines of war. War raged between mortals and Hypogeans for several years. Many times it seemed the Hypogeans were close to rout, but each time they rallied. It dawned on Dura that the evil present in the hearts of all living beings not only begot, but also fed and nourished the Hypogeans. They could therefore never be truly defeated so long as malice and evil still existed in mortal hearts. To completely eliminate the Hypogean threat, they must be hermetically sealed within an isolated space, completely cut off from the material world. Discerning this truth, Dura formulated a plan. She would use the astral key, bequeathed to her by Honas, to create a dimensional rift and seal the Hypogeans within it. However, this presented a dilemma. Using the astral key would alert Wemyss fathoms deep under the sea. Now, we left out the Wemyss part of history in order to keep it going. Yeah, exactly, Popco. You know why? Because they haven't told you it's this interesting. Unfortunately, that's why you don't know, is because it hasn't been expressed like that. Yeah, it's really cool. It's that cool, man. I always tell, I'm always out here saying it's like the best fantasy writing in any game I've played since EverQuest in 1999. And people are like, yeah, okay, all right. But it is. It just is. Okay, so where are we at? We're Right, Wemyss. So the Wemyss deal, I left it out earlier to be quick about it, but it I guess it does play a little bit. Anyway, that's the reason that humans were given magic by Dura, which created the era of man gods and the war between humans and gods, which I did talk about a bit earlier. The reason for all of that, and the reason that Annih had to lie to them to get them to start fighting each other in order to defeat humans, it was because they were given magic. And the reason they were given magic is because Dura had always wanted to give humans magic, but the other gods wouldn't have it. The Celestials said, no, humans don't deserve magic. The idiots wouldn't know what to do with it, kind of thing. And, you know, Dura was like, all right, I think you guys are wrong, but whatever, it's fine. And then Wemyss was essentially a Hypogean type of a demon. He was a reclaimer, which is a type of demon that were created by Lutos to go search for the astral key in the material plane, in our world. Because he's in the void realm, but he still has the ability to affect things in the material world. So he created these beings called reclaimers, which were essentially Hypogeans that he sent out to go find the astral key. Well, one of them found its way to Esperia and started interacting with the peoples of Esperia and really liked them, and started kind of teaching them little magic tricks, and was like, you guys are living in filth in caves. This is awful. Let me teach you some stuff. Here's fire. Here's, you know, clothing and a little bit of magic. And they started worshiping him because their civilization flourished. It was the greatest civilization on all of Esperia at the time, and for several centuries afterwards too. It was like this great ancient civilization. And they worshipped Wemyss as a god, essentially, because he came and helped them so that their lives wouldn't suck anymore. And the Celestials got jealous and attacked those humans, killed them all, and pushed Wemyss under the ocean and trapped him there. And then they said, okay, you can teach humans magic so that they don't get out of hand and start, you know, worshiping demons over a little bit of magic. Let's teach them basic magic. Sure, whatever, go for it, Dura. And then humans got so powerful that, you know, the whole era of man gods happened, and the Age of Arcana. But Wemyss got trapped under the ocean. Wemyss is the Hypogean who whispered to the god of the sea when he was passing by one day, Khazard, and ended up corrupting him into a Hypogean. It was because he was swimming in the depths, and that was where Wemyss had been trapped. So, Dura formulated a plan. She would use the astral key, bequeathed to her by Honas, to create a dimensional rift and seal the Hypogeans within it. This presented a dilemma in that using the astral key would alert Wemyss, fathoms under the sea, to its whereabouts. His entire purpose, his entire being, was in searching out the astral key. Yet, should the Hypogeans be permitted to wreak their havoc, Esperia would almost certainly be overrun and doomed to be, sent to the Void Realm covered in demons anyway. Eventually, polluted and... Oh, that's literally the next sentence. I thought it ended there. I was summarizing for you, but it doesn't. Esperia would be overrun. Eventually, polluted and dead, it would be dragged into the Void Realm. Dura finally decided that using the astral key to seal away the Hypogeans was the lesser of two evils, and considered how best to enact her idea. However, her plan could not be completed by the gods alone, and she needed mortal assistance. Dura planned to concentrate the scattered Hypogean forces into one location, and, once amassed, create a dimensional rift in which to seal them away. The mortal armies were essential to success, as they were needed to present a united front and drive back the Hypogeans into one location. Through oracles, Dura communicated this plan to the clergy of the Lightbearer Temple, the elders of the Temple of the Seers, it's the Maulers, and the Oak Sages of the Wilder Council. Under the combined call of these disparate yet esteemed figures, the mortals agreed to assemble and fight together as one. Dura had chosen a location at the foot of the mountains as the place to create this dimensional rift. However, the route along which the Lightbearer army would drive the Hypogeans lay straight through dwarven territory. In order to ensure the plan's success, Ancelot himself traveled to the dwarven territory, there to secretly meet with the Dwarf King. Candidly discussing the situation, Ancelot expressed his desire to form an alliance with the dwarves. Ancelot, naturally, as we talked about earlier, was the creator of the Lightbearer Empire, chosen by the leaders of the Lightbearer Temple as a great warrior to lead them. He established the Empire and was there. If he wasn't yet, he will become the Emperor of the Lightbearer Empire. He might get that title afterwards. So Ancelot goes to the dwarves and says, yo, we need to use your backyard. Is that cool? Candidly discussing the situation, Ancelot expressed his desire to form an alliance with the dwarves. Such an alliance would support the Lightbearer Empire's operation with both troops and geographical advantage. After several long days of tough negotiation, the Dwarf King finally acquiesced to Ancelot's request, and an accord was drawn up between the two parties. To thank the dwarves for their aid, Ancelot swore that if ever the Empire's assistance was needed, his descendants and the entire Lightbearer Empire would be honor-bound to ensure it was given. I think that would be a great expansion, a great season for Journey, would be something happens to the dwarves and they call upon the Lightbearers to come help, and then, you know, you tie in the Maulers and Wilders somehow too. But I think that'd be really cool. I'd love to get a whole, like, dwarf-centered story. I think it'd be neat. I don't know. I think they're a little talked about part of Esperia, even though they're part of Esperia. No, they do in-universe stories for Dimensionals. They do, Slowby. Yeah. There's lots of them. Whenever they land, they get a story of their landing and what happens to them when they, like, what you see each of them show up and be like, yo, where am I, kind of thing. They get like a little quest like that where they, and they're good. They're like well-written little stories of how they ended up there, what they do once they arrive, and what they settle into as their life in Esperia, what it looks like, what they decide. Pretty much all of them decide, I can make a difference here, kind of a thing. Some of them are trying to get back, and many of them get brought back in again to stories. Like, no, they're denizens of Esperia now, for sure. They don't just do the crossover and dump them and move on like a lot of games do. No, they don't. Yeah, no, they're good about it. Oh my gosh, Duxie, Younger Sages lore when? Yeah, I want you to draw that young Arden picture you have of young Arden and young Aemir is my favorite one that you've done. I love that picture. I think it's so cool. I would love to see them as Younger Sages. It'd be so cool. Donnie could be like kind of hot, you know? Donnie's sexy. Sexy Donnie. How many gods exist? I don't know. There's lots. there's several. There's at least, like, you know, 15 or something. There's lots of them. There's like 30, right? Maybe more, maybe 100. I think there's like 100. So actually, I've heard the number before. I think it's something in the around. I want to say it's like 190, something like that. Several of them got killed in this war, though. And so they wanted to replace them, which is why they offer Ancelot immortality, and he turns it down. And there's someone else had a question. Oh, how many empires? There were 12 human empires at their peak. There were 12, and then they all fell down attacking each other, as we just talked about, and were combined into the single Lightbearer Empire. So now most human establishments are under the Lightbearer Empire. At least on the primary continent. But there were, at one time, there were 12. All right. Where are we at? Right. Ancelot the Great swears his oath to the dwarves. After years of united warfare... Let me see. Okay, so also, for context, this, I mean, it doesn't matter, but let me give you some years just so, like, context. The Maulers began their, like, we don't need anybody, we'll fight the Hypos on our own war in the year 42. The Wilders, after 19 years of that, the sages were like, hey, these Maulers are knuckleheads, they're not going to win this on their own, we should jump in. That was in the year 61. Then Dura sees that the Maulers and the Hypos or the Maulers and the Wilders are fighting, and comes up with her plan to get the Astral Key in the year 69. And Ancelot the Great swears his oath to the dwarves in the year 70. So by the time he's swearing to the dwarves for this plan, it's been almost 30 years that the Maulers had been fighting them, and about 10 years or so that the Wilders were fighting. And of course, humans have been fighting the Hypogeans since the Hypogeans got here, because most of the world was human. All of the world really was humans. The dragons separated themselves literally thousands, millennia ago, and everyone thought they were extinct until they showed up again in April. Oddly enough, right around when Journey launched, suddenly AFK Arena had this big launch of a bunch of stuff at the same time, which made no sense, but because everyone was focused on, you know, one thing. Did they win? Popco wants a TLDR on the war. Yes, they did. Yes. It was close, but they won for a time. They do win, and they drive them back, and they seal them in the barred gate. But eventually they break free. And now we have, you know, I think there's a few different seals over time. I think this worked so well that they've done it a few times, because you'll remember at the end of Veduso Mountains, or no, Reign of, what are they called? After Veduso comes Remnant Peaks. That sounds right. Burial escapes from a seal. So yes, they win, but it's, you know, 10 temporary victory. I want to see Alna. I feel like this Frost, we should see Alna. Don't you think? Don't you guys think Alna should be part of this Frost expansion, this snow and cold expansion? I feel like Alna is should be part of it, but I don't know. Here, after years of united warfare, the mortal races of Esperia were finally able to drive the Hypogeans to the foot of the mountains. However, the cunning demons saw their chance to strike at the very summit and attempt to capture the divine palaces of the gods. So they push the Hypos all the way, they trick them to coming to where the Celestials kind of live, basically, and they're going to pin them at the base of the mountain. And the Hypos are like, screw this, we're going to run up top and take your home, take your house, and move into Olympus. It's like Mount Olympus in the Greek gods. So the Hypogeans amassed a force to assault the peaks in a frantic onslaught. They swarmed like locusts up the mountains, scaling the craggy cliffs, bounding and lunging desperately for the summit. However, their actions angered the divinity who watched over the mountains, the frozen mother herself, Alna. You know, we should have some visual aids here. Allow me to bring them up. The frozen mother.
Fatality. Stop! No more! The ice can penetrate everything, even you.
My goodness, Anna.
Winter's touch cannot be forgotten.
Definitely not if it's penetrating.
Stop! No more!
All right, I was joking.
Winter works alone.
Yeah, I get it. Fine, whatever. So this is Alna.
Stop! No more!
She's, as you can see, a badass. She's super cool, actually. The frozen mother. However, as the Hypogeans bounded and lunged desperately for the summit, scaling the craggy cliffs, their actions angered the divinity who watched over the mountains, the frozen mother herself, Alna. From the top of the mountains, she bellowed in rage.
Stop! No more!
her divine wrath triggering an earth-shaking avalanche. A monstrous torrent of snow cascaded down the mountains, slamming into and burying the unprepared Hypogeans. Watching the scene unfold before them, the Hypogean forces were intimidated and discouraged, and abruptly abandoned their plan to seize the mountain. However, Alna's outburst of uncontainable fury also generated a long-lasting and freezing wave, which swept across the whole land. This ushered in Esperia's first winter, bringing storms of pale snow which shrouded the land in frigid blankets of white. Mortals, never before experiencing snow or ice, felt they were witnessing nothing short of a miracle, and knelt down to worship and to pray to the mountains. After years of united warfare, the mortal races of Esperia were finally able to drive the Hypogeans together to the foot of the mountains. However, the cunning demons saw their chance to strike at the summit and attempt... Oh, wait, no, that's... The book... The book actually tells the same story twice here, even though it's got a different headline. It's missing that text. I heard... Someone told me it was fixed in one of the newer editions, or maybe the older edition. But yeah, they copied and pasted that text twice here in the book, even though the headline is different. And of course, it's the section called Dura creates the Bard Gate as the first Hypogean War ends in victory. But we don't know what happened. No, we do. It's covered in lots of other stories that are written. So then we've got this part's great. I love this part, and this I think will actually play into the story of season 3 here. I think this part really could be a part of it. Here, check this out. The book, it's a good question, Popco. It is AFK Arena, the official art book. And it's a 2-book set. This is half of it, and the other half is this. So, and they're thick, man. I mean, they're like, you know. It's heavy, like they're like, I don't know, 500 pages each. No, sorry, this one's 330 pages on the white one. The black one looks like it's a little bit thinner. The black one's like 230. Yeah, guys, it's cool, and it comes in this case thing. Yeah. It's actually not that... The case isn't that interesting. I mean, it's just, you know, it's kind of the same thing, but the official art book collection, and it, you know, it's like a... They both go into here. It's a little... I bought this with the first paycheck that I got from Twitch last year. From our AFK Arena streams, after I made affiliate, I started investing all the money that I was making from the stream into more material for the stream, and I still continue that tradition today. If you see at the bottom left here, stream wish list at Throne, those are just things that will help the stream out, such as the new lights that I've got up here, which is incredible, and the new monitor, which is even more incredible, which is on its way, but they didn't have that one, and I'm still picking out the new one for it. I haven't found one that fits into that same price range and quality, and I'm gonna lock it down soon. But we now have the money for it, so we're upgrading the stream piece by piece. But yeah, this you can order it online from, oh god, I don't remember the name of the publisher. If you just look for the AFK Arena art book collection, that's what it is. It's like 2 big coffee table books. So, yeah, of course, man. So, okay, so then the fallout of the Divine War, I think, could play into season 3 in a really cool way. So this is one of my favorite parts of it. So check this out. During the first Hypogean War, many humans succumbed to the lure of Hypogean power. They willingly sided with the foe, even going so far as to help them slaughter their fellow humans and praying to the Hypogeans. When the war finally ended, these traitors were tried as war criminals. While a few were executed through military tribunals, most were exiled to the Empire's inhospitable frontier by the Lightbearer Empire. These exiles had a mark of sin further inflicted upon them, as the temple clergy wielded an incandescent iron with the divine light to brand their foreheads. This scar, this mark of sin, could never be expunged, not by any trinket known to man. The mark was even etched into their very blood and veins, as any offspring would be born bearing the same mark on their foreheads. These exiles and their descendants came to be forever known as the Sin Bearers. Now, if the Sin Bearers get brought into season 3, I will be so happy, because from what I see in that trailer is this guy, what's his ass, the Jafar dude, black hair Jafar guy, starts with a C. He seems to be, you know, tricking the royal family, obviously, in order to get the princess, because she's, I don't know, beautiful or whatever. They're going to sacrifice her. It seems like, yes, Siren. It seems like they're gonna try and turn her into a hypo of some kind or something. She's getting covered in all that purpley hypo slime miasma stuff in that one kind of primary shot of the new trailer, right? It's like they keep coming back to that shot or things around it. And so as she's getting covered in all that stuff, it looks like it's some kind of ritual. And then there's that shot of all those people praying and bowing down. And it makes me think of the sin. Well, it made me think, we talked about this yesterday. It makes me think of the cultists from ReZero. If you're familiar with ReZero, it's a story world wherein the main character keeps dying and going back to the same day. It's a time loop. I love time loops. I think they're really cool plot lines. You can do so much creative, like, you can just really, really fun stuff with the time loop. It really evokes the writer's imagination. It really is a way to see how creative a writer is, right? It's a great way to have fun with creative writing. And they're not, honestly, I think they're not done. And now they're becoming more popular. You're seeing them more. But for a long time, like Groundhog Day, there weren't that many films or stories that used them. So I'm glad to see them becoming more popular. I said yesterday, there's this cool movie called Palm Springs. If you guys haven't seen it, you should really watch it. It's a dark comedy about a time loop. It's one of the best ones that I've seen in recent years. But the time loop storyline that we're getting here, and these cultists that are clearly trying to do some kind of dark ritual, at least. We don't know what, but it looks to me like a dark ritual. Or they may have cut the trailer to look like people are doing a dark ritual, and in reality, they're festival goers cut with dark shots to look like they're praying to the dark. I don't know, but it has that feel. And in ReZero, he keeps dying and coming back, and there's all these different kinds of ways he dies, meets lots of characters, but the one that becomes like the kind of recurring primary theme is there's this cult of like demon-y worshiper kind of people who are trying to I think reincarnate some dark evil, historic ancient evil, and the main character and his friends keep failing to stop them, so they have to go back. And it has a lot of those vibes to the new trailer does. So I really hope that they bring in the sin bearers in some way, like, because it makes sense that if they were marked for sin, right, and even all their offspring have the mark on their forehead, and like, that's so cool that it's in their blood. I love that. Not that you should blame the child for the sins of the father. In fact, you very much shouldn't. And in fact, by welcoming the children of evil people is the way that you stop the evil. By marking them and saying you and your kids are forever evil. That's exactly how you keep evil in the world. Like in Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power series, where, you know, she, by being so convinced that she has to stop Sauron, she ends up bringing Sauron back. But if she had just accepted that he was gone, he would have stayed gone. But by being committed to this fact that he exists, she creates him. And really, it's that endless cycle of violence, you know, someone has to stop it and break it. So in reality, the idea of sin bearers is not a good one, because yes, I do believe that the people that made that choice should be forever marked and never able to take it off. And I'm all for branding their forehead. If they sided with Hypogeans and slayed humans, let's brand their foreheads. Absolutely. But not their kids. Let's raise their kids to be better people and say your parents made a mistake and they paid for it, and we had to stop them, but we love you. Like, that's what they should do. But for the sake of fantasy and fantasy writing, let's get the sin bearers into it, because understandably, the sin bearers are going to have a chip on their the children of the sin bearers, especially 2,000 years later, are going to have a big chip on their shoulder against Dura. Even if it's not Dura probably wouldn't be for that, but they're going to blame her because it was followers of Dura that did it, the Lightbearer Temple. So I think there's a lot of material you could get here to I don't know, that's what I'm hoping we get into, or something like that, you know. I just think it'd be so cool. And I don't know how the time loop plays in. I think they said that Daragon was here at the start, and he said that the skills for Cryomania, whatever the heck her name is, released today. We found out that there's a Frost Hypogean who is not Khazard, which pissed me off at first until I realized that Kaz was not actually around during the Divine War, so he couldn't have been involved. So it's okay, it makes sense. But this Hypogean Frost demon is involved in the time loop somehow. We know that much so far, and that's all that we know. But we are, in about half an hour, going to get the next part of the story here, which will be spoiler central. So if you're not up for spoilers, you might want to check out at that part. I'm trying to think what else I wanted to cover for this season or this expansion. That's pretty much everything that I had to bring today, which is perfect timing because we do need to check a couple of our accounts before the resets hit here. Yeah, I think that's enough background. The rest of it is like great questions to bring and shout at me in the comments on the video. So you guys that are here, I am gonna do a bit of editing at the end of this and post it as a video like I did with the stream a couple days ago, where sometimes if it's a good stream, I decide I'm gonna start, because people don't really find the live streams that I do in the live section, but it actually gets shared to people as a video if you post it that way. So I might start trying to share them sometimes as more as videos. So if you guys have questions that you think of regarding everything we talked about today, like throw them up or just throw me comments, because it's helpful to me and it makes, you know, it makes people enjoy. They like to see that other people, if other people care about it, people will decide they care about it, right? So if once you guys see this, not right away, not the live stream here, but when it goes back up again as a video, like later tonight or tomorrow, put any questions that you think of later, like, or think of one, you know, and ask it there, and we can keep the discussion going. That'd be great. So I'm gonna take like a little quick break here for like 5 minutes. I'm just gonna hit the bathroom really quick, and then we will. I'm put my contacts in. I've been doing this without contacts, y'all. And then we'll see what dailies and stuff I got to do before resets, and we will jump right back into the season 3 story, which will have spoilers. So hang tight. Thank you all for joining me, and I will be right back.